welcome yet again to another episode here on the MaPro Oulie podcast. My name is MaPro and I'm joined by Oulie. Hello Oulie, I'm hoping you're having a wonderful evening.
Yeah, my day has been quite good and entertained myself quite well. And yourself?
Can't complain. Work was fine. Now here to record this podcast. It has been a long time. Last podcast has been in January of 2023. And now in March we are finally back with another episode. Just as a little recap on what we talked about in the last episode. Basically we talked about how to set up your team. How to basically find a team. How to set up a team structure. What to look out for in teammates. Then also touching into in-game roles. How to set that up. And basically how to get your team started. So then me and Uli went, how do we take it from there? What is the next steps? What can we provide in information and useful tips to our listeners who want to join a team, who want to make a team, who want to take it to the next level, but just don't really know how. So Uli, if you might want to explain them what we have on the plate for today's podcast.
So today we have a couple of things on the menu. We'll be talking a little bit about coaching, and me and MaPro have been experienced coaches for certain lower level teams, obviously, as we ourselves are not as good as we hope to be eventually. So we'll be talking about coaching and what that can give you, what coaches should provide, and, you know, depending on situation, what they need to deliver, help the IGL with, or support where needed. We'll be talking a little bit about outside the server, because we've talked a lot about inside the server. What do I do inside the server? How do I set up my team? But now we'll talk a little bit about the outside of the server. Team Discord, scheduling. We'll talk a little bit about announcements and also voice channel stuff. This is looking at Discord mostly, but obviously some things may apply to TeamSpeak. We'll have our obvious sponsor, Rogue Energy, back with MaPro's ads, and we'll talk a little bit about a sort of media not merchandising, more like brand related kind of stuff. Like MaPro will be talking about how you set up a Twitter, how do you work as a graphical designer. Obviously we are not pros, but we like doing it and we improve ourselves in it. Be creative and post actively. Those are our main points for today.
Alright, so we got a lot to talk about, so let's not waste any time, because our time is quite precious and most certainly our listeners' time is quite precious, as they want to get started in their own Counter-Strike teams and they will be like, guys, come on, hurry, I need info, come on, give me the info, I want to practice with my team. So we're gonna start it right off. Uli, what is the first topic we're gonna get into?
So, as I said before, we are gonna start with the coaching. And I, in our notes, have made two different situations where you as a coach or someone else as a coach joins an established roster, or they join a roster from the start, from point zero with an IGL. So they work from the ground up, or you have a situation where they join a established roster of 5 players. In this case, I'll look
Yeah. Just to kind of chime in there, I think the dynamic is also very interesting when you as a coach actually make the team yourself versus when you join an existing team with an already existing IGL and captain, because I think that is a cool dynamic to talk about, because I think those are two different scenarios. Because in the past I have experienced both. I myself have been a coach in a team that I formed, or mainly formed, because it was a mess when I joined. And then Uli, on his example, was my coach when my team was already formed. So we can both talk about the differences there and how you get along with what you want the team to do, basically, and how to approach that whole situation.
Indeed. Because the situations are so different from each other, I guess I'll start with the established roster, as you said. Fun fact for the podcast which you just gave, I have been MaPro's coach before. I think it was like half a year to a year in length, something like that, if I'm correct.
But should have been half a year.
Exactly.
Or maybe some months more,
yeah.
But around that time, yeah.
So in this case, what we did, MaPro and me, first sat down. Okay, what is MaPro as me as the coach? MaPro is the agile. As a coach, you go to your agent and say like, "Hey, how are you doing it now? How is it looking? What have you noticed? What are the positions of your players? Because obviously we talked about that in the last podcast. So the RGL has already given the players positions, and as a coach, when you join an established roster, you need to accept that, obviously, because the IGL captain has already played with these players. You just joined as a new, maybe not a new coach, but you joined this new team, for you at least. In this case, for you, the early part of being a coach goes to getting to know the players, look at their play styles, see what they're doing in the game, be with them in the comms, try to get a feeling of how the IGL is making his calls. Does he play for map control? Does he play more of a puggy style, like you can see in Furia, as I should say, as the Brazilians I think say it. So you need to keep all these things in mind, that when you have an established roster, they might already have a set playstyle, and you need to see if you can work your way into their playstyle and get a feel of how they are playing. For me, it was actually an interesting one, if we just take this first point of looking into a team. For me, MaPro was really, if I may say so, and correct me if I'm wrong, where everything was lined out on the documents list. It was like, so on this execute, we'll be doing, player A will be doing this and this, player B will be doing A, B, C, and player D will be etc. And I was a little bit more fluid in my setups. I was a little bit more open and letting people decide their plays. And I think in the long run, looking back at it, we actually merged quite well, MaPro. What do you say?
Yeah, that is a quite interesting part. Like back then, I had my teams very much structured, very much running a big strat book with many executes. At a certain point, it was a lot of executes and many we didn't use. Now, today, we don't really pay too much attention to the strat book, because we have our certain plays we do, and not everything needs to be noted down. There are certain plays people do on a map, those don't need to be written down anywhere, because the people just do it. Otherwise, you have a strat book full of 100 things you don't need there. So what we now have in the strat book is the executes, which are important, and then like protocols with certain need lineups, so people don't forget those. But otherwise, like small peaks and small setups, we don't really put in the strat book, because otherwise it's just too much. And back then I did the mistake of putting a lot in there and putting so much that it was probably even hard to keep it all remembered in your mind. And trying the very, very much structured approach, where I have to say, now that I have also improved as an IGL, have worked on many of the flaws that I had in the past, I now can comfortably say that the way I play it today is more fitting to the team, more fitting to myself, and I think also more fitting to the meta you see in Counter-Strike, where it's like you give your players freedom in the system. You don't just let them run around and say you can do whatever you want to. You just outline the system, and then players have the freedom. I'm not telling, let's take connect on overpass, for example. I'm not telling the player how to clear this position on the T side. I'm just showing this is a good Molotov to use, and then those are the angles you need to worry about. And then the player can decide himself, is connector fought for? Is it not fought for? I'm just referring to connector because it's a nice 1v1 duel and they're not overly complicated, where it's like you can see a pattern if the enemy team is holding it or not holding it, and then your freedom that you are given in this system as a player allows you to basically adjust and say, okay, I'm going to take small gambles and clear it faster this time, because that can beneficially help your teammates to get earlier control anywhere else, because you have more time on the clock. So that's just something to throw in there. And also, when you have good players, when you have some quote-unquote star players, and you know your players and their qualities, and you put them into the position or into the positions and into the roles that is fitting towards their qualities, you give them a lot of freedom, and you in return receive a lot as well, because sometimes our lurker he just goes out of palace and opens the A site, and then I'm like, okay guys, we got A for free. Or he killed the CT guy, A is free, A is open. Where it's like, if you really structure it to the bone, then I believe a lot of players will get a little bit scared because they are not now really following what the book says. And for me personally, I'm like, okay, let's take Mirage again. T side, A lurker. You're gonna go palace or ramp. And you're just gonna lurk there. You're gonna do your thing. Because I know our lurker is good in finding adjustments, in reading through the enemy's pattern, and then finding solutions and how to effectively lurk out there. So, Luca, respect to you on this case. You're doing a really good job at that. So, but that also comes down to freedom, because he is given a lot of freedom. He will take it, but not overly overstep his line, because he knows he has to fill out a certain role in the system. So just to touch on that topic. So
yes,
now you can continue.
Yeah, no,
I've said my pieces.
No, I mean, like I was saying about the freedom, the merging of our playstyles, because I think this how you learned to work your way into the way you IGL now, as you are a team captain. I am, and you're obviously a coach, but you're more IGL than captain. I am actually, when I look at those things separately, IGL or captain, excluding other roles, I am more of a coach kind of guy instead of IGL. I used to be IGL.
Am I right that I coached after I had you as my coach?
Yes,
because
I started
there I
coaching.
actually picked up some things you did, and also like did some of the things you did in my team. So that was really good.
To continue on that, then, is because you had such a structured playstyle, as you said, people don't get freedom, and they feel like they can't swing, they can't peek, they can't be aggressive, because they're like, I don't follow the book. If I make a mistake, and we do a demo review, we'll touch on that in a little bit, then I'm gonna get a mistake for something that maybe is a right call or isn't a right call at that point, but that's the gamble I take. Whereas with a slightly more open system that we play these days, you and me play these days, our team plays these days, it does give you the freedom. Me as a hybrid support, I can just swing this, take the fight. If I win it, great, we have an entry. If I don't win it, then we have the info. Always look at it positively. That's also one thing a coach should do, give positive feedback, and also be a positive type of person, because if you're not positive in a full team, it becomes hard to work with an IGL and also run a team. Continuing, if you take CT overpass, for example, MaPro, if you remember your old self where you'd do the opening moves and then at 135 you'd fall back all the way to A site as a CT on A. Whereas instead, I told you to take control, take some space, stay there, lurk around, take space, don't fall back. Because for people that don't know, we play a lot of map control, meaning you hang around, you slowly fall back, and if you don't get info, then you actually push up, meaning you get a lot more space and information in your game. MaPro,
also, your reaction time is a lot slower, because you're not waiting forever and then, oh my god, they're executing, oh my god. And then the other people are like, oh yeah, sure, we're coming, but it will take a long way because we were not set up for it. So with our style we're playing now, it's really, really much better for our rotations as well. Because I remember, certainly in some of the older teams I played in, rotations were always off because people never really pushed for anything, never really retook map control. And also, just quickly touching on T side again, terrorist side, when we had some executes, and those, some of them were really overcomplicated, where you actually needed like 4 people with utility, then of course nobody pushed, because they knew, on this map we really like need 4 to 5 to execute. Where it's now today in our team, we have it, okay, sure, we can execute with 3 people, no problem. Either you know the smoke, or you drop me the smoke, whatever. Back then, smoke dropping was not a thing, but also, in general, the executes were overly complicated. And now today we can actually adjust and do executes depending how we feel, what makes sense, and how many players do we have left.
Agreed. So that is a thing of how to work with your agile. I think in my case, I approached you and said, hey, what is your kind of style? And I showed you how I called, because we obviously came from two very different styles. Or mine was actually, you wouldn't expect it, but my old team was very heavy pug style, very freedom style wise, and it was more individual than it was actually team play. Whereas yours was, you could say, the prime Astralis 2018, 2019, where everything was structured. It was all planned and it was all working. Except for you, the last part didn't work as well because it didn't work as good. Then continuing, before we get stuck too much, demo reviewing is one of the big one of the big points a coach needs in the 2D version. I won't name any names, but we use Noasis. Yes. Or you can use Scope.gg, you can use the in-game minimap even if you feel like it. I wouldn't suggest, but hey, it works for you. That's 2D maps that you can do to look at it tactically. If you want to look at it tactically, a 2D map is great. You can look from the top, you can see if you remember the comms, or you record the comms and you watch back with comms as you line them up. Make sure, if you do, that you say 3, 2, 1 before the match starts. Might be useful, so you can line up with what's happening on your 2D. Then just look at it. What of a tactical point of view? What call did the IGL make? What mistakes is the team as a team making? And you can then use 3D mistakes, like watching in the game or using Scope. Was it Skybox? Yeah, Skybox on Steam. Then you can look at it.
Or even Refrag, for example, also works.
Refrag can also work. You can watch the 3D mistakes, so you could help individual players where you see smokes. You can also see smokes in 2D. Where you can see smokes missing, or you see people missing a certain spray on a gun a lot. There you can point that out to them. You can say, hey, mate, not to be annoying, be respectful always. And say, hey, I noticed you missed a lot of the B-execute bridge smokes. So here, I've got a lineup for you. Let me show you quickly. Try it a couple of times and you'll be fine. Demo reviewing is a big part, MaPro, if you want to elaborate on that, because we found certain things that were really hampering the team, wasn't it?
Yeah, in general, demo review is really important in our team. And in the past, we have fallen to a little slump where we really couldn't close out games anymore. And it was really frustrating. And then we went on to look, and at the end of the day, had to do a lot of adjustments. Also player-wise. Adding new player, removing old players, and then also map depending which strats work, how does a player actually plays position, how does he need to adjust, because there are certain patterns that a player does wrong moves, for example. So in that case, we gained a lot out of the demos, like a lot out of the demo. And also, like, for myself as an AWPer, I also got a lot out of the demos that I have watched with Oulie together, where it's like, okay, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even getting any impact. And then I'm like watching pros, how they play it with the AWP. And then I have copied some of the moves and also in general gotten an idea of how to play around a certain map. For example, Mirage was a map I have always permabanned, and with this team, we have started to play it. So I was, first off, as an IGL, kind of fresh to the map, and second, as an AWPer, totally fresh to the map, because I only played it in PUCs, not anywhere team related. So I had to find my way into that. But for that also, trying what you think works, looking at your own demo, and then adjusting. That's simple, and you need to have an open mindset for that as well. You can't be all negative. Oh my god, I'm doing mistakes, what is happening? Because then you're just gonna lose it. You need to be like, okay, I tried with the knowledge I have today. I tried playing this map. We have lost, or maybe you win, and you still look at it. Because it doesn't really matter if you lose or win. You should really look at nearly all the games you play. At least the ones where you kind of felt you didn't show your A performance. Talking about on an individual level. But it's like, I'm going like, okay, I did my best today, but tomorrow I'm going to watch. And then it's tomorrow, I'm going to look at the demo and I'm like, yeah. Certain peaks here and there, certain plays were unnecessary. Some peaks I didn't even take, which you should normally take. And then I'm just going and seeing what I can improve on. I'm doing a little list. I'm watching some pro demos, for example, and getting some ideas there. And then basically you have some things to work through. It's that simple. And with a team, it works it's the same. You're just going, you're just looking on how the team overall, and also, of course, the individuals, because a team is made out of 5 individuals at the end of the day. And then you look how everyone does. How does the team? How is the execute performance? Like, we practice something. Did it actually work? How do we need to adjust? How is the enemy playing against our setups? How do we need to tweak our setups? Maybe you need to you need to throw some strats out of the window, maybe even. Maybe they don't work. You dry run them for like 2 days and yeah, nice, we got this, boys. But then on the server it doesn't work. Then you need to have the dignity to say, guys, we tried this execute, works perfectly on an empty server. Every enemy until now countered us. This is not working, so we're not gonna have it in our strat book. And for many of those reasons, demo review is important. And it's sadly one of the most overlooked thing in Counter-Strike, where people often like complain, oh my god, my team is so bad. Oh my god, I'm individually not getting better. Yeah. Do you do the demo review? No, I don't. I don't really. I'm like looking at my Leatify performance. Yeah, that's it. And then I'm like thinking, dude, you don't even need to look at the Leatify performance. If you're having the same results over and over again, you're losing. Look at the demo, what happened in the game. That's the most important thing.
That's what I was gonna jump on in actually, is because people overlook demo reviewing and then they're gonna look at Leadify, for example, which is one of the stat sites we use. I also use scope.gg for some stats. To give you a little bit of background, I am really into analyzing. That's why I originally became coach of MaPro team, because analyzing stats, those are my things. I like that stuff. I used to be very heavy stat dependent before I became heavy analysis demos, which became a problem because someone on Leadify, when you look at the kills, and for example, I was gone, I had something else to do, and I tell MaPro, hey, send me the link for Leadify and send me the demo. I check the stats beforehand, and I'm seeing, player A has 20 kills and 80 ADR. Or player B has maybe 12 kills and, let's say, 60 ADR, right? And you'll be thinking by yourself, well, player A must have done great, let's watch the demo. And then you come and look at the demo and see that out of those 20 kills, only, let's say, percentage-wise, about 50% to 25% have actually been impact kills. Call it trading, call it fragging in a clutch, or call it lurking where you cut off a rotation. Those are impact kills. Those can win you a round. Impact kills are what wins you a round. Entry kills are also impact frags, although people normally don't say that. But they are important. If you don't get into sight, how are you even going to win as a team? Right. Whereas that player B with 12 kills, all of his were, for example, in a clutch or entrying. He might have died a couple of more times, but he had the impact he needed to. He did his job, what he was assigned by the IGL or the coach. He might have had less good numbers, but him in-game being there, showing up on his role and having impact in the round is the key. Not to ego boost, because I don't like that, but I am one of those players that might not always have the highest numbers, but does do regular clutching, does do regular entering, although I shouldn't sometimes, where we get into sight, we do win a round because of a clutch. And those stats, as I want to say, don't say anything if you haven't watched the demo, as reflection and analysis are one of the bigger points of CSGO, as you said before. Then, to move on and keep it slightly more outside the game, diplomatic moves. What I mean with that is having contacts with other teams, trying scrims. Obviously, doing scrims is something a coach could do, so the IGL gets a little bit less stress and can just focus on the playing. In amateur level, scrims are easily settable upsettable? No, they're easy to set up. Prac.com, for example, prac with double C at the end, is a great site. It was used quite a lot, and I would suggest using it if you want to find scrims. But there's also amateur tournaments. There's also different ways to get contacts on certain team finding sites. That's outside the team. You can also look inside the team and have regular team talks. If you lose a game very heavily, 316 Vertigo, MaPro, if that reminds you. We did quite a long team talk after that to decide how we were going to continue and what was wrong in that game, if you remember.
Yeah, very much remember that game. Also a game where we did a demo review. Also a game where we were a lot smarter after the review. And then we had actually possible solutions at hand. Which, if we didn't look at the demo, Who knows if this team, even in that way or form, would still exist with some of the players that are still here to this day. Like, you need to watch why you are getting beat, and that is really important. Of course, you don't need to look at a 16-2 win. You can if you have time. Mostly you wouldn't, because you're just stomping the enemy. There it's literally not even that your team is super, super, super good, but maybe that the enemy is just super bad. And then you actually need to look at the close games. The games you lose very close, also the games that you win very close, and most definitely the games you lose like 2-3 to 16. And that is, I think, is a good guideline for how many demos you should watch. And also, if you feel something off, something didn't work, you don't really know what a player is doing, just go watch the demo. It's for free, doesn't cost anything, or just like not even $15 a month, like $10 or something to get one of the programs and have it like in a pro version or something. And then just go and get to work, and then get a piece of paper and note down what you see, and then take that to your next practice session. Boom, there you have an hour of content, an hour of your teammates talking about what is happening. You're showing them in the demo, guys, this is what we did wrong. Do you have solutions for that? Because I most certainly have come up with some, but maybe you have other ideas as well, and then you just get creative together. That's simply how it works, and it's as simple as that. It's not a big thing. Just take the demo, watch it, learn from it, and then let's get to work.
I would very much agree. Then continuing on to finish out the established roster for a coach. Tactical calls in timeouts. Make sure, because MaPro, you can remember, me as a coach, but also you as a coach, and also us as IGLs, used tactical callouts or tactical timeouts. Not really, like face it or matchmaking. We never really used them because we were like, yeah, we know it and we can just do it in a buy time. But a lot of the time, you can sit down for a minute, calm down, ask everyone, hey, what did you see on B? What did you see on A? What did you notice in connector or mid? What did you see here? What is their regular patterns? You can also do this in eco rounds by sitting in spawn. You just wait, or you slow down, you stack somewhere and you just wait and talk it out. So always make sure you also ask your team for information, because they might not always give the information at hand because they're busy with a fight. They're busy with setting up util or some kind of form that they're busy in the game.
And sometimes a player himself doesn't even realize that his information might even win you the game. Like a player can be like an overpass T-side player on B. They always do this certain smoke, or they molly 2 times, they rotate 1 off. Maybe he just forgets to tell you because he doesn't think it's super important. But when you know it and they do that, you wait out the Molotov, the third guy is gone, then you just pop out and boom, you have won the round, for example, just as a theoretical example. But every info is viable, and an IGL and a coach, for that matter, should both ask the team about information, relay back information. What do we see? What do we hear? The pattern, what Oulie talked about, very, very important. And then we can see and find solutions in our strat book, or even come up with something on the fly and try to make it work.
Yes. Then the last point I have on the established roster, but this, keep in mind, most of these points also for the established roster count as a roster in creation eventually, is mental assistance. And I don't necessarily mean a psychologist degree or anything to do with psychology. Just the mental play of you losing a clutch. I would say, MaPro, you lost a clutch. Nice try, mate. Let's go. We'll win the next one. Fuck them up, Those things are really important for a team. The mental aspect of a team is very important. If you start winning rounds, you're like, nice guys, keep it up, let's go. You have a great mindset because you're winning. The time when you start losing that mindset, when you're losing, is the key point. Where do you step up? As you said, when we lost a lot of rounds, when we started losing to finish out games, we started looking also at our mental aspect. We started discussing, hey, did we notice anything in the comms? Yeah, we became more down. People didn't start to believe. Now, we still believe when we're 5-10 down at a half. We still believe when we're 12-4 behind in the middle of the game. We still even believe when we're 4-11 or when we're 2-13 or 2-14 behind. We still believe we can make it back because we trust each other and we trust our mindset. And the thing is, for example, when you have a clutch, try to hype it up as much as you can as a coach, but also as an IGL. And also as a normal player. This also counts for a normal player. If you see your teammate win a 1v4 pistol dually clutch, not mentioning anyone, then go mad. Go like, let's go, boys, let's go. Because it hypes up everyone. Everyone gets the feel, let's go, we can win this. Fuck them up. We can start winning now. And I think the mental aspect, MaPro, if you want to maybe add a couple of things if you want to. Mental aspect in this game is very big.
It is indeed very, very big. It is indeed very, very important to have a good mindset, to have a positive mindset about the game. Let's say you're in a really tough game. It has been mentally draining. You're winning the fights you shouldn't win, and you're losing the fights you should win. Nothing is going for you, but also some things are not going against you. You kind of feel like you don't really have this game in the palm of your hand, but then on the other side, you look towards the enemy team and you know that their IGL is also having struggles because there are things they expected to work don't work, but then they, for example, smash you on their shitty force buy rounds. So there are often games which, from an IGL perspective, are like, oh, I have no clue what's happening. Like, why is this working and why is this not working? But then you shouldn't go like, guys, I don't know what we should do. Just, I don't know, I have no clue. Like, this doesn't help as a leader. You need to be like, guys, okay, the things we normally do might not work here, but we will find solutions on the way. Don't worry. Play your A game. Try to focus on your crosser. Try to focus shooting the enemy. Try to stick what is working. Try to stick to our default. And I will call the adjustments for you. Just headshot the enemy. That is the number one thing we're going to do. And then we have a shot in this round and a very, very big potential to actually make the comeback and to get this W. You always need to be supportive of your team. You always need to keep the team spirit up as well. On a personal level yourself, even if you're not an IGL, a normal player, you need to be positive about the game. At the end of the day, you need 5 people who are positive about the game. Who don't look at the result like, let's say you're down 8-14. 8 or even 6-14. Where it's like, okay, we lose one round, then they have a match point, then we have a lot of match points to face, so we can't really like lose one round because then it's GG. Yeah, just go like, guys, we have a shot, we have a chance, we can still do it. Let's focus round by round, and then we're gonna win at the end. You need to be mentally strong for that. You can't be mentally weak, because otherwise you will just crumble under the pressure. Oh my god, we're already behind so far. Oh my god, they will probably win one round and then it's like match point. Oh my god, we can't lose. This doesn't win you games. You need to believe, even if it doesn't work at the end. If you believe, you have a much greater chance of actually making that comeback, of actually closing out that game and winning it than if you didn't initially. Also, keep in mind, you are not believing affects your teammates. Your other teammates will actually feel it and hear it and experience it when you don't believe. And then other people might do the same. And then there is the IGL who's trying to be positive and is like, guys, come on, like, what? Don't we even believe in the win anymore? Like, come on, guys, you're all so down. Communication is bad. Come on, step it up. And you don't really want to be at fault for that, do you? So, as a general tip for an IGL as well as for the other players, positive mindset all the time. The win is possible. The win is just one round win away. Round by round, game by game, that's how you do it. Don't think about the long run. Don't think about that comeback. Think about winning this round, and then the next round, and then the following round, and then the next round. And eventually you will see yourself come out as on top. And even if you lose a game, you shouldn't be all devastated. You should professionally look at what you did wrong and how you can fix that. And then you go apply. And then hopefully it goes your way and you're now better on the map. And touching in on a very specific kind of topic here, actually. I believe winning and losing is not that important in Counter-Strike. At the beginning of a team, when you're still at this amateur level, when you want to improve as a team, many people are like, oh my god, we're playing ESEA Open or whatever league, and we're like, we have one game won and we have 6 lost. We're just gonna like disband after this ESEA season. I'm looking for team. Someone sign me, whatever. You see that over Twitter a lot of times. People are just like so focused on results. In our team, when we started this off with the new roster, the results were also not that great. And it took some time, so it got rolling. But nobody ever questioned the idea and the potential of this team. And it didn't matter if we win or lose. It really didn't matter. What mattered is if we lost, how we lost. How can we fix our mistakes? What are the solutions? If we won, nice, great. What worked wonderfully, and where are even potential mistakes that were just not punished by the enemy team? Also something important. A win is not always a win. You win on paper, but you might just have bad performances yourself and the enemy didn't punish you for that. So keep that in mind. Even if you win, you can still have a repeated pattern of doing certain mistakes in certain plays that are not really aiding and favoring you towards your goal personally and with the team. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Winning, losing doesn't mean the world. It's just what you do with it.
Very much agreed. And then one final thing about mental before we're going to continue about what a coach should provide on a new created roster. Last mental point thing is feedback. A lot of people, when they get feedback, they're like gonna defend themselves. And it becomes really annoying for an IGL and a coach, because a coach is trying to help you and an IGL is trying to help you. They're both putting a lot of work in to do demo reviews. MaPro, you can say we watched demos until 1:30 a.m. in the morning on a normal weekday where we work. We two both work, by the way, just giving you a heads up. And we need to wake up at, I think you wake up at 6:30 and I wake up at 6:45 or 7. So it's, we put a lot of time at the start when we struggled in demo reviewing and then giving our players feedback. Hey, we noticed this. Can you explain? Or we suggest doing this. Even if they say, no, I don't want to do this, we always tell them, try it. Because the way you played it here, look at the demo, you show them proof. That way you give them the confidence of, hey, I actually looked at this. Look at this round. I show you. You have proof for him to show it's not working. Then you show them certain, like MaPro said quite a while back, where show some pro gameplay where they do this or they adjusted this slightly, or you can, out of experience, like me and MaPro by this point, out of for me 3 years of team play CSGO and 3 or maybe 4, where it's like, out of experience, we know how to play this slightly different because we've played every role. We've played every part of every map by this point, except Anubis maybe, or Ancient, but it's fine. To the point where people need to be open for feedback. If you want to improve and have a long-term project, people need to be willing to improve and accept feedback. Same thing should go for the coach and the IGL though. They should also accept feedback. When a player goes to the IGL and say, hey, MaPro, I think this and this call was unjustified, and I feel like I had a much better call on this round because I said this and this on this info. Or if the IGL is not showing up as an actual fragger, because sometimes these days in this meta, IGLs can't really be lacking behind 15 kills anymore. They have to show up and say, hey, I'm within 5 kills of my hybrid supporter, of 10 kills inside of my AWPer, which is still a lot, but at least they're showing up and showing, hey, I am improving individually as well. So that was my last point on mental, where feedback acceptance is important for a big long-term project. Then, closing that down, established roster. We're looking at a roster in creation, and we'll be looking mostly at some more stuff outside the server, but also some stuff inside the server, where it will have slightly overlaps with episode 2. All of the above obviously count, like we said, all the earlier mentioned things. Then we continue with some new things. A coach, when they join a newly formed roster, keep in mind, newly formed roster, they need to, instead of the IGL doing this, they need to keep track of the schedule. When can players play? Did someone give you a message that, hey, I can't play this Tuesday because, or maybe they just said, hey, I can't play this Tuesday. Find a solution. That's where a coach also is part of manager. Coaches and if there is no coach in IGL, should be a part manager as well. They need to manage scheduling. They need to decide the style of the team. If there is a coach, they do it with the IGL, and if there is no coach, then the IGL does it themselves, obviously. But how do you play the team? How does the team want to play? Maybe ask the team. Because a team needs to also be happy to have faith in the IGL and also trust the IGL. On the other hand, sometimes the IGL and the coach have already talked through how they want to play, and they search players on the way they want to play. Could be map control, could be puggy, could be a mix, could be strict, could be loose, name it. Could be fluid, if you will. They need to work on defaults, set executes, and individual practice schedules. A perfect example of the individual practice schedules is me and MaPro getting told when I was a support or I am a support now in Evening Squad, and MaPro was IGL or is IGL up, where we got told, hey, you're using way too much util, work on your aim, it's not good. Me and MaPro sat down and actually worked on our own individual practice schedules and said, hey, let's do 30 minutes deathmatch, maybe we do some retakes, maybe start doing some movement stuff, some surfing, some bay hop, some KZ. And I think that's really important. A coach could be really important in someone's individual work. MaPro, if you want to touch on any point I just mentioned, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of points you actually talked about are very, very true. In general, the dynamic is very different when you as a coach set the team up. You are getting the players. You are the one in charge. Because in all of the teams I have coached, it was that way. I remember when you joined into my team as the coach, it was the way that I was doing the managing side and you were there to assist. You were doing all the background coaching, let's say it like that. You didn't have to do any management stuff. So you did all the demos, you prepared strats, for example. We talked a lot of things through. Where in the teams I coached, it was always me initially setting up the team. Then, of course, mainly most important person besides myself in the coaching position then was the in-game leader. So I talked to him about possible tryouts, what he thinks of those, and then we made a decision together. But in the end, me as the coach had always the final say, because that was basically my team I set up. But still, of course, working very much close together with the IGL. And then also saying, this is the style I want this team to play. And then leaving small room for the IGL to actually get his style in there as well. And then have to kind of this mixed style which works for both sides. So that is something I want to throw into this conversation, where I experienced that when I set up the teams as a coach. And also did all the management stuff, because that was and is still to this day one of my strengths, where a lot of the IGLs don't really like to do that. They like to play, they like to create strats, for example, but they really don't like to follow sets or even schedule things. They don't really like to do any Discord work. They don't really like to do any managing stuff, just play. And I think you need someone to do that managing stuff. If you don't have a coach, like for example we don't, so me and Oulie also divide some of the managing stuff, and everyone knows what their things they should be working on are. So we are kind of both coach and not coach at the same time in certain aspects. But let's say you are in a team and you're the IGL and you have that coach who is doing all the managing for you. Great. Now you can focus on the game fully. But it's like if you are a IGL and you got in a coach, then you should probably still keep the managing stuff to yourself, because the team already respects you and they know that you do that. It will be very hard to get the coach to do that, because the team coach IGL dynamic is then a little bit different in my mind.
Yes, I would agree. And I think that's where also your strengths and my strength are. I was slightly more focused on the game aspect. I was also more interested, whereas you actually liked the management side, as you said. So I think it also worked into both our favor that the team noticed, oh hey, Uli is doing this. If I have certain questions about this certain subject, I can go to him. And if I have a different question about, for example, who do we play next Monday, then they can ask MaPro. And I feel like that's also a dynamic between IGL and coach that switches per team. If you have a newly formed team or an established team, those dynamics change every so often when you join a new team. I've been in different teams where I instead, as a coach, picked up the game side of things and the management side, because normally a coach joins for the gaming part of the side, but they also do the management jobs there to let the IGL get some more freedom, get him some space to work with the team. I feel like we've covered most, if not all, of what coaches provide at this point. We've had it about demo reviews. We told a little bit about impact and stats, diplomatic moves, aka scrims, contacts, team talks, timeouts, mental, team roster moves partially, and teamwork with the IGL and the dynamics that involve that for an established and a new roster. We've talked about scheduling. In my case, I'll give you a quick rundown. I used to have a spreadsheet where I kept track of who's available most of the time in a week, and I used to also do a certain way of scheduling that in a spreadsheet. Deciding the style of the team is actually an interesting one because it can differ on team again, and I would say that it really depends on what IGL and what coach you have, as again, that's dynamic per team. In our case, we mixed up our styles. As said before, defaults and ZXX, they can work with the IGL and the coach can do them. Individual practice schedules, again, mostly go to the coach, could also be the in-work with the IGL. And I see that MaPro actually wants to, or hints to me that he wants to add something, so go ahead.
I have one interesting thing to add to this discussion to close it out at the end of the day, because we are talking a lot about coaching, IGL, and how that whole dynamic works. But then also, if people look at our profile, our team, they see we don't have a coach, and they might just be like, oh, why do they talk about coaching when they don't even have one themselves? Maybe we don't even need one. And sure, as a competent IGL, you can pull it off without a coach, but it can be very, very much beneficial to have a coach for the things we mentioned before. Help, assisting, etc., etc. A second person on the team with a new view, for example. That is very important. So if you have the option to get a coach, go ahead and try it. A lot of times you will gain more than you will lose. Touching back to our team. So as Uli and me have talked about, me being the IGL and Uli my coach back then, that whole dynamic is now still kind of the same. Just I'm the IGL and Uli is the support player on this team and also helping with the second calling, as it's often referred to, and in general just also like the second voice in the team. So we discuss a lot about the team, basically how we did when Uli was my coach, but now he's just also one of the players. So for that, we still have the same things implemented, just not Uli as the coach. And again, you can pull it off without a coach, but I believe it's very beneficial if you have one. And also, if you don't have a coach, at least I believe it's very beneficial if you have that second voice on the team.
Indeed, very much agreed. Then we shall, before we go to a break, we'll handle one more topic, meaning team Discord needs. Could also be mentioned for TeamSpeak here, or any other way if you still use Skype, I guess. I don't know who uses Skype, but hey, it's not like we're in 20, what was it, 15 when that got actively used, 2014 maybe. TeamSpeak, Discord mostly. You can also use it for other stuff. Where in our Discord we have a separate schedule channel where a certain bot, MaPro programmed, automatically sends out, hey, practice is today at 8 CET, Central European Time for people that don't know. Or a certain bot or a certain command MaPro uses to spam. I say spam because, to be fair, it spams a lot sometimes. But it spams, hey, can you come on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? And then it gives you a check mark or an X where you can select, hey, I'm going to be here that day, or no, sorry, I'm not there. It just is easy for an IGL or a coach to say, okay, we have practice on Monday and we have practice on Wednesday, and Tuesday maybe if people feel like they need individual feedback, and Thursday will be off because no one is available. So that's a scheduled channel. You can also use it without bots and obviously type to each other and say, hey, for next week, who's available on Monday? You can do it different ways. I used to have a spreadsheet, as said before, but normally you can use a scheduled channel in Discord to discuss when you can plan. We also have a specific tactics channel, which refers to our stratbook site, and it shows you pretty much any default strat we use. Obviously, we won't give those away because we're not that dumb, but in general, you can use any strat channel to type strats, to show people certain screenshots, or send them to a specific link which involves a nade or whatever. Obviously, you have your practice and voice channel channels, and you have your text channels to type but also be serious in, and you have your announcement channels. In the announcement channel, you can put out certain announcements to the team, like, hey, practice will be cancelled on not accidentally. I was gonna say not unavoidable, unscheduled. So sometimes it can happen that people suddenly have a emergency situation and they can't come, and then you suddenly, instead of 4 players, or you could maybe do some retakes, do some strat talks, you maybe have 2 or 3 where you're like, yeah, it's not really worth. It might be worth just taking a quick off day. Also part of the mentality where you need to get away from the game maybe a little bit more. Maybe you're overplaying and you might need an extra break. It could be useful to actually put in a break. Those are announcement channels. Also, when you make a roster move, you could put them in there. Obviously, the team already knows. But then sometimes it's better to put it on paper so people have it again. And then you could also use set rules in the Discord. For example, in our Discord, we have per role who plays what. So it's clear for everyone in our Discord who plays where and what they do. MaPro, did I miss anything big?
No, I think you have it all covered at the end of the day. It really depends on how a team wants to set up their Discord. I personally want the Discord to look good and to be structured so everyone knows where can I find what I need. I really hate it when there are certain Discord servers that are super unstructured. I have to look and look to find something, and then I find the channel finally. I find it, and then there's just a lot of spam. Like, people are giving permissions to write in an announcement channel. Shouldn't happen. There should be the captain or the coach saying what's happening, and that's it. Because I've certainly seen here and there announcement channels turning into a discussion channel. So you should have everything sorted out so it doesn't look and doesn't feel like a mess. Also, I have seen, and not for teams but for tournament organizers, I have seen a lot of tournaments that looked good on Twitter, for example. I joined their Discord, it's a mess. I don't find the sign up link. I don't know when the tournament starts. I just have like 500 messages because people are spamming in the channels, and I had to leave because it was a pain. It was a pain to find anything. I spent an hour, couldn't find anything, and it was just a mess. So that is something to keep in mind. Have it structured to the level you want to. I have it super structured, but also have it super nice looking. I think that's very important for a Discord server. Just to everyone should find what they need pretty soon. They shouldn't take hours to find something. If someone wants to look at a strat, he should know where to go, where the tactics channel is, and then look however you manage those channels yourselves. But just go into the channel, and then either he gets a link or he sees, okay, I need to do this. Boom, question solved. Instead of, oh my god, where do I even find this? Do I need to scroll up, down here? Just have some structure. Then you make it easier for yourself and you make it easier for your teammates.
Very much agreed. I would agree. It gives you structure. It gives you cleanness in your Discord and your team needs. Then, now, MaPro, if you want to take it away for the ad, and then we'll continue.
Alright, it's the time of the day where our proud sponsor, Rogue Energy, is presenting you our little break here. I think we deserve that here after around 55 minutes of talking. We still got some topics for you, so don't go away. In the meantime, take a nice sip of your Rogue Energy. Hopefully you listened to us during the latest episode and you ordered some. I hope you do. If you didn't until now, I hope you do after this episode, because it's really, really good. It is not only might, it is actually the best energy drink out there. And with our code, you can also save some money there. So make sure to check that out as well. Everything you can find about Rogue Energy and the code, etc., on our Twitter page and on our Podbean page as well, if you want to check that out. So give that a visit, give Rogue Energy a visit, and I will now send you into our little advertisement. And we will see you after this in a minute.
And welcome back after your ad break from Rogue Energy. We'd like to thank Rogue Energy once again for their sponsorship of our podcast. And now we shall continue after our great break to get back to the podcast, talking about brand-related and media setup stuff. And MaPro has a lot of insight on this, as he likes that part of a team and community. So MaPro, over to you.
All right, thank you. I have a lot of topics to talk about. I'm just going to give you a short list of what you can expect now to be talked about. It will be Twitter, it will be TikTok, graphics, then the brand itself, logos, banners, being creative, create content and post actively. And I'm just going to go through every single detail. And Oulie, if you have something to add, just text in our document and I will keep a look at it, and then I will let you have some time to talk about certain things. But I think for the most time now you will mainly listen to me here on this end, because this is something I like to do a lot. This is what I do in our team as well, in our Evening Squad community as well. I do all the branding, all the social media work, etc., etc. So I'm just gonna guide you through all the things here. So given the fact you have now started your team, you now have players together, now you guys decide, okay, let's get active on social media. Like, we want to build something, we want to get seen by other players, we want to be a part of the Counter-Strike community. Very important that you interact with other teams, with other players, and you kind of get into discussions as well, and kind of develop some quote-unquote friendship with other teams, with other players. Also very important, very underrated, because at the end of the day, the community is rather small, and if you're not being a total prick as a team and as a brand, I think you can make some friends here and there. So that totally works. Touching on Twitter, which is the most important thing, you're just gonna make a Twitter account. Everyone should have the personal Twitter account. You don't need to be active, but you should have set it up so you can link your players in your posts. Then you make the Twitter account for your team. So basically what you need is, what is our name? Maybe a cool hashtag or something. Maybe what do we have in the logo? Can we work around that? And basically set up that Twitter account. How we did it is, we had Evening Squad, we had a logo. So later on, and I'm kind of the points I'm touching here are overlapping. So now getting into graphic designing, and I'm not a graphic designer, I'm really far away from that. I use a certain website where you can do that. It costs a little money, but it helps you a lot. There is many ways you can do that. So make sure to Google that stuff and then you will find some things. So I'm using that website. It gives you a lot of options to actually make graphics yourself and adjust many things. What I believe about graphic design, and this is touching into a brand as well. If you look at Evening Squad on Twitter, you will see the basic outline of our logo, and we have that eagle in it. The eagle then comes to our Twitter bio, where we have the hashtag sharp like eagle, meaning our aim is as sharp as an eagle's eye. So we are sharp like eagle. So that is something we came up to, like a little catchy phrase there. Then the eagle is in our banner. And overall, our scheme in the graphic design is always towards the same direction. We a lot of times use Counter-Strike maps as background. Then I put a dark layer on it. I do it black and white. I have certain fonts that I'm always using, and I have a color theme of white and orange because you can find that in Evening Squad logo. So that is something to keep in mind. Your brand should have a direction. You can't just post content, pictures, logos, banners that are all looking different. You should have a general direction, color-wise, scheme-wise, fonts-wise, for example, even content-wise. It should make sense. So touching into branding a little bit here as well. So let's say you set up your Twitter account. You're giving yourself your team name, Team XYZ or something, for example. Then you make a logo. Depending on what you have in the logo, you now know your color scheming. So now you decide to do some graphics. You should have some nice fonts. Look into that and spend some time with that actually, because hopefully you will make graphics at the beginning. You just need to adjust down the line, but the general direction is already set. Otherwise, you have to do the work a second time and it will take a lot more time. So then you have that outlier, then you have a banner, logo, you have the color scheme, you have the branding kinda. Now you know everything there. And now it's like, just post content. What can we post? What do we post on Evening Squad? We post things about roster changes. We post things, we welcome a new player, or when a player leaves, we do a post about that with everything gets a fitting graphic and a fitting picture as well. Then what we also do is we post videos of our players, of their clips and stuff, of their highlights, for example. Then what you also can do is, and that touches to the next part, when you have a community, you can also post community related things there. Otherwise, for a team, just post what's going on in your team. Just post clips, just post new player, just post whatever changes, just keep your audience updated, basically. That is the most important thing. And I think you will find your groove with that. And once you actually know what kind of content works and what kind of content you can actually share and you can actually do, then you have a line. You know what you can do on social media. And then also don't forget to interact with other teams as well. And here and there, a good meme can also work. You come up with a nice meme. You make a meme yourself. There are also websites for that. So you just come up with a funny meme. For example, on our TikTok and Twitter channel last time, I shared a meme about some of the maps in Counter-Strike. And I think it was even Counter-Strike, the guy holding hands, the girl on the right looking in shock because her dude looked towards another girl walking by. The girl walking by, I think, was Anubis, and the other one who was holding hands with the dude was Train. So basically just mocking, hey guys, why do we look even at Anubis when we can't bring in Train? A really good map, for example. You can just find different topics Counter-Strike related and make memes out of that. That works really, really good. So touching into TikTok as well. Let's say you now made some content on Twitter. Now you want to get into TikTok because TikTok is one of the most fastest rising platforms in social media and also Counter-Strike regarded. I believe Twitter is also very important. I believe TikTok is very important. I don't believe Facebook and Instagram are that important. So for Evening Squad, we also don't use those. We use TikTok and Twitter for our case. Then on TikTok, what can you post? You can post highlights, of course. It's a video platform. Post highlights of your plays. Those shouldn't look bad. You should kind of find a way to edit those or to make them look nice. So filter out what can you actually share there. Nobody's gonna look through a boring clip of one kill. You should have multiple kills or actually a clutch or something. But I think everyone knows what a good highlight is, so just do what you feel works. And yeah, basically, I think that's it for now, what I have to say. I'm just going to throw it towards Oulie because he said he wants to bounce in on a topic here. And in the meantime, I'm going to think if I can add some more value to you guys in that regard.
So, yes, indeed, I was going to bounce in on some of the Twitter stuff because as I might not be making it, I still keep track of it, obviously, because as a player / part management of Evening Squad, as I wouldn't say I'm a founder because I didn't make it with MaPro, but I'm still running it with MaPro by this point. I actually like the Twitter activeness part because since recently, you can see the views on your tweets, and what I find interesting is that a lot of the times you have serious posts that don't really regularly post themselves, you get less views on Twitter, for example. I can see 60 to 70 if you look at our Twitter, which is at Evening Squad CS. Just gonna plug that fucking ad right there. You can see a lot of the actual posts that are kind of serious are kind of lower-ish on the views. The highlights are slightly higher, but they all get consistent good views, meaning the activeness you post works really well. If you are actively working on your Twitter, on your different social media platforms, you will eventually grow. It just takes time. It's a long-term project. That's one thing I wanted to bring up. Also, we use, if I may say, All-Star for our clips. We use that in our Discord. It's a channel in our Discord as well. And when we press a button, it records the last, I think it's like round completely, and then it checks for your highlight. Only works for you personally. A lot of the highlights we send in a certain channel or we send directly to MaPro so he can work on a certain type of clip or a certain montage or a highlight he wants to use for the account. So to create the content, you also need to have the players look out for this, because if the players don't clip their content, your IGL or your social media manager, if you have a bigger organization or in long term become a bigger organization, you have a social media manager, they can't do everything on their own. So make sure that if you have this idea of creating a brand, creating something outside of the game, that you let your players be in on it as well and let them help with you on creating the highlights, being active with it. Another thing I want to bounce in on is what MaPro slightly touched on, not much though, because he went more into the brand related stuff. Community related as well. You can have activities, announce them on a Twitter, on a TikTok, or announce them on Instagram, even if you have one. It could be useful. We do regular retake nights, MaPro, where we actually, the last one we did, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, where we had a full server for retakes, and we eventually went to do have an idea later on of maybe doing a 5v5 random hub like you have in Face It, for example.
Follow our Twitter because there might be some future community events coming soon. You didn't hear it here.
Exactly. Yeah, you didn't hear that here. By the way, that is really good to do. And as I said, if you regularly post, you get more views. If you do stuff with the community, people will recommend around. They will retweet, they'll sponsor, they'll get interacts. When you have interacts, you start getting higher into the, I wouldn't say in the algorithm, but maybe it actually does. I'm not working at Twitter or TikTok or any other kind of brand or social media platform, so I wouldn't be able to tell you, but that's what I was thinking is when you actively tweet and you do these events, you let people know, you let them join, you can actually get a great following, and then you can actually grow your community, build up your your brand, if you will. I am, for example, I know MaPro might not fully be into this completely and doesn't like it as much maybe as I do, but I'm working on inspirations for merchandise, even though we might not need it, obviously, but for jerseys, I am working on that. Just because I want to, I have the time for it, and I actually got recommended by one of the two players around our two teams, because we have an academy and a main team, as you might know from the other podcast episodes. I'm working on that because I got recommended that, hey, have you checked this? And I was like, hey, that's a great idea. It also works partly for the branding. So keep that in mind when you start a brand. And I see that MaPro has noted down something about the algorithm and then something else. So I'm interested. What are you going to talk about?
So basically you mentioned before the algorithm, and sadly it doesn't work that you can post quality content one time a week and get massive views, because the algorithm, as how far as I have understood it, and I have not gone into detail, this is just based off some other projects I also have that are doing good numbers. You need to have a baseline of good content. You can't just post bad content all the time and expect to get views and expect it to do good. Many likes, for example, many retweets, many people sharing it, many people looking at it. Because if you have bad content and you post 20 tweets or TikToks a day, that doesn't really help. You need a good baseline of good quality content, plus you need to post as much as possible. So you need to kind of find a way to keep your content up to a good level, and also to keep your posting schedule up to a good degree. What I see a lot of times teams doing, they don't really have the good quality content yet because there's nothing to post, but they want to be famous and seen by people, so they will now post bad quality content 15 times a day. And then that's just when you get people to unfollow you, because they're like, no, don't want to watch this all day. But if you're actually having good content and you manage to post some tweets, I'm not giving out a number because I don't really know the perfect one, but if you're like trying to be as active as possible while still having good quality and not forcing yourself to post bad quality, then this is very much beneficial to the algorithm, because the algorithm basically looks at how many views you have and how often do you post. The more you post, the better the views you get, because the higher quality content you post, the more people will actually see you. And I have seen recently Twitter did this as well. TikTok had this all the time, the For You page. So basically it starts off, you go to this page, For You. So the algorithm, of course, shows you the stuff you have subscribed to, but also shows you stuff based on what you are actually liking, looking for, searching for, and what you're actually watching. So that is very interesting. So you get a lot of new accounts, a lot of content you actually didn't subscribe to, but then it is content that actually fits you. And for Twitter, it is the same. I recently saw, because they now have that For You page. They have the page you follow, so you just see like it was before, whoever you follow, whatever content you follow. But then it's like the For You page mixes both things. It shows you what you follow, but it also shows you content you might like, depending on the other content that you're already following and looking at. So that is very interesting for once, that the computer, that the AI or whatever is behind that knows what you like and actually suggests things. But then it's also very, very beneficial for content creators, because you might show up in timelines of people that don't even follow you. And that way they can now follow you, because now they see you. Now they know who you are. Now they see your hopefully high quality content, and they see you are active as well. So that is just something to throw in there. And the second thing I wanted to talk about is not really touching on branding, not really touching on community. It kind of is at the end of the day, to be fair. Just a little background story, because we have been mentioning our team Evening Squad, and this is the 2.0 Evening Squad, because there was Evening Squad in the past, which was a pure puck team, I just came up with the name because we always played in the evening. That's how it is. And it's quite a catchy name, and we quite like it since this day and stuck with it. Evening Squad. We're playing in the evening. That's it. As simple as it is, It doesn't need to be hard to find a proper fitting team name. So basically I made Evening Squad, and the tweets, those are not longer online, but in the past it was a lot of meme tweets. We only played Face It on a lower level and sometimes even matchmaking because nobody really cared. We were a pure puck team. This was at a time where I was retired from coaching, and I was also retired from the team I had before and just wanted to chill a little bit but still play. And Oulie also chimed in for that and also played with us, and we had like 7-8 people all the time around, and we always had mixed rosters and sometimes even mixed roles, and it was really overall a big mess if we look at it with our today's standard. So a lot of the content I posted, and it was only Twitter, and also, as I said before, you need to have a brand outlining, otherwise it doesn't really make sense, it doesn't look good. I didn't have that back then because nobody really cared. We had like 8 followers on Twitter. Those were the followers we had already in the team, like our team players. That's it, I believe. I posted basically cringe content. I basically posted clips of people exploding to bomb, clips of someone losing a clutch, sometimes good shots, but sometimes just idiotic moments as well. It was literally just a meme team at this point. And then Oulie did something else, I did something else, and eventually we returned to Evening Squad. And then I was thinking, we want to take it serious. So the branding on social media should be serious as well. So then I went and deleted all the old stuff. The only thing I have from that day is the tweet with the "We love Nuke," or "If you ban Nuke, we riot," I believe, because that was a masterpiece of mine, so I wanted to leave that there. Otherwise, now the branding is making sense, and it is an actual serious team. And I'm not saying you can't be a meme team, but for our case, it was not working anymore because we had higher goals than that. And apparently nobody really remembers that we were a meme team. Everyone on Twitter, I believe, now knows that we are a serious team and we try to make this work. I believe that is a nice thing in Counter-Strike. You can also kind of redefine your team also a lot through social media and just try to make it better. And for our case, it pretty much shows. If you visit our Twitter account and our TikTok account, you can now see that there is no cringe content, no stupid, idiotic meme content. There's actually good quality content. And that is the last thing I have to add onto this here. And basically, guys, just try. Just try. And hopefully it will work out for you. If you're not stupid, if you're trying to approach this in a smart way, and you actually have content that is somewhat interesting, I believe there's a good chance you can start off with something and work your way up.
Yes, indeed. That really concludes today, and on that final point on the community related / brand related, in general, what you just said counts for everything with the coaching, with finding players, with earlier mentioned things on the podcast. Trying gives you mistakes, but it gives you learning points, and you improve from that. That is the biggest key of that last point. Then, as we've been rambling on for 7 centuries, and from what I remember, I think it's like 1 hour and 15 minutes now. 15 minutes, not 50. That would be really long. I want to recap with you and then close it off for this night. We obviously introduced ourselves and recapped a little bit of our episode 1 and 2 podcasts, where we talked about what we did when we set up our teams, and we told you that we were going to talk about coaching today, which we did in an established roster and in a newly formed created roster. We talked about demo reviews, stats, diplomatic moves, tactical timeouts, mental assistance and mental team play, scheduling, deciding stuff with your IGL, how a dynamic with an IGL works in certain ways, and we also discussed team discords. We discussed scheduling, we discussed strat channels, we discussed announcements, we also discussed individual practice schedules. We also obviously had our ad about Rogue Energy. Thanks again to them for sponsoring us. And if you want, get something from Rogue Energy with our code. Then MaPro had his good old talk about the off-the-team stuff. More brand-related media setup, Twitter, TikTok, graphics, brand, logo. Be creative, create content, and post actively. We also discussed a little bit about community stuff. Again, keep in mind, Evening Squad CS at Evening Squad CS on Twitter for any community-related events from me and MaPro and the boys in Evening Squad. Join the Twitter if you feel like it. Then, for me, it only rests to say, MaPro, thank you again for this episode, for the great talk we've had once again. And I want to thank you all for listening to the podcast, episode 3, in the 17th of March, as we've created this. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
All right, thank you, Oulie. It was a pleasure again to talk with you. Hopefully next time we will not take this long to record the next episode. So check out our Twitter at MaPro Oulie Cast. I hope I'm right. I hope this is the Twitter. It should be the Twitter.
Let me check quickly.
In the meantime, I'm going to also say thank you to Rogue Energy, and of course, most importantly, thank you to our listeners. A lot of people we know are from Evening Squad, so hello boys and girls. Nice to see you around here. Some are from outside other Counter-Strike teams. Some are actually not from Counter-Strike. So also hello to those people. And thank you a lot for listening, and follow us on Twitter and all the social media platforms we have for this podcast. Make sure to follow at MaPro and at Oulie Gaming on Twitter, and follow at Evening Squad CS there as well, as we have talked about our nice team and community a lot during this episode. And was I right with the Twitter handle?
Yes, it was at MaPro Oulie Cast.
All right, you see, I'm not that old. I don't forget everything. So follow there. I'm saying once again, thank you for listening. Thank you, Oulie, that you spent this time with me. We had a good talk. We came through some topics. It was much fun. And I hope the viewers and the listeners will have much fun listening and watching this. So again, thank you. And we will make sure to be back in time. Not in 2 months, maybe in some weeks. Who knows? Hopefully soon, for yet another episode of the MaPro and Oulie podcast.